Cameron Stewart is the Australian's chief international correspondent, and just when we thought it was safe to look away from the Middle East, there's been another development that means we all need to start locking on again.
We have a big force going toward Iran. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely.
An American aircraft carrier, the USS Lincoln, has arrived in the Middle East. Cam, just paint a picture for us of how big an aircraft carrier is and the kinds of things it can do and what that means for the Middle East.
Well, Claire, the aircraft carrier is the USS Abraham Lincoln, one of the premier US naval assets available to Donald Trump. It's not alone, though. It's got 3 warships accompanying it. Each of those have numerous Tomahawk long-range missiles. There's several other US warships in the Straits of Hormuz nearby as well. America has deployed more E-15 warplanes and also air defences to the region. So cumulatively, what Donald Trump has ordered is a huge buildup of military power in the region, bigger than the one that he deployed to the Caribbean prior to the kidnapping of the Venezuelan president. And so what this gives the US is the ability, if it wants, to launch a comprehensive strike on Iran, and just as importantly for the White House, to protect US troops already based in the Middle East, in Iraq and Syria, from reprisal strikes from Iran. So all of a sudden, Donald Trump has a lot of options on the table. His chess pieces are in place. He now has to decide what he wants to do with them.
It's a big twist in the unrest that's been going on in Iran. It started with shopkeepers revolting against the economic conditions that they're living through. It spread to pretty widespread social unrest in Iran, and then there was a vicious crackdown. Donald Trump initially indicated that he would come to the aid of the protesters. He warned the government not to execute them and not to start killing people. They seemed to do that anyway. And then nothing happened. So is this what was happening all along, that Donald Trump was actually just positioning his forces and it's not that he's lost interest in making a strike on Iran?
Well, that's the great question, because certainly Donald Trump was very keen to strike Iran at the point when the regime was cracking down, that very, very bloody crackdown on protesters. It was left at least 5,000 people dead. He was very keen to do it. Then he got military advice saying, look, we just haven't got our maximum amount of forces in the region. That makes any reprisal attacks from Iran, that makes us, meaning US troops, a little vulnerable, but also Israel as well. Benjamin Netanyahu is not shy about getting into a conflict, actually warned Donald Trump, please can you delay any attack because we're concerned about reprisals from Iran. So really, Trump has been playing for time to get these forces into place now. But it's a little bit more difficult for him now to suddenly launch the attack, in the sense that the killings have stopped for the moment, the protests have stopped, and so it would look a little bit more provocative to the region, perhaps, if he actually went in at this minute. But this is the choice that he's going to face. And I think we should remember in all of this, Claire, that when the US and Israel attacked Iran's nuclear sites in June last year, they both deliberately gave the impression that they weren't going to do it. And Donald Trump, in a similar fashion this week, has been playing with words, saying maybe we will, maybe we won't. He's really not giving an indication he's definitely going to do it. But that doesn't mean that he hasn't already decided to do it, because that's what he did last June.
There's so much mystery surrounding what's really going on in Iran, Cam. Do we know yet what impact those strikes had on Iran's nuclear capability and whether they really set Iran back or not?
There's been lots of conflicting reports, but the general consensus, if there is such a thing, and look, we should say, intelligence on nuclear weapons and programs is famously uncertain. I mean, we all remember the NWD scandal in Iraq back in the early 2000s, WMD scandal, and basically you can't be certain, but Iran's nuclear facilities are considered to have been knocked back by about 5 to 10 years, their progress towards getting military-grade uranium and setting a military nuclear program into action. So, look, it was successful. The level of degrading that happened, we don't really know. But you know what? Trump would probably, if he was going to strike Iran again, I think you'd find that he would go again to the nuclear sites as part of a big suite of targets, because he'd like to get that degraded even further if possible.
There are reports that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has gone into hiding, Cam. What would be the point of an American attack on Iran now? Would it be regime change?
Well, the intelligence assessments given to Donald Trump have been that an attack on Iran won't change the regime. It's unlikely to actually do it. And so, that's a question for Trump: is what is the point of smashing Iran if it's not going to change the regime? That's really something he's got to weigh up. But the thing is that any attack on Iran, Claire, does weaken the regime. It weakens it further. It makes it more toothless as far as any future attacks go on Israel. It makes it more toothless as far as its ability to fund terrorism around the world. And it does give at least lip service to Donald Trump's promise that he would, quote, help the protest movement during its, of course, he did not do so when the protests and the actual killings were happening, but it would at least give some sort of sense that the America is behind this movement in a long-term fashion. And so you couple that with the potential to knock back some of those nuclear sites again and degrade their overall military capability. That's the attraction for Donald Trump in this, and that's really the benefit of him when he's considering the risk-reward analysis.
One of the ways Iran has flexed its muscle in the region over the years has been funding proxies, terror militias in other countries, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hamas in Gaza. The past year has seen huge degradation of the capabilities of those forces, as far as we know. Now there is talk that Hezbollah may actually be a fighting force that could come to Iran's aid. What do we know about, starting with Hezbollah, their capacity right now?
Yes, so interesting, because Iran's terror proxies have been so degraded, as you say, over the past 2 years, and they've come in selectively on this question as to whether they might help Iran. Now, Hezbollah is very interesting because it has kept very low profile. It's been quietly trying to rearm itself. It's being funded by Iran, and it is keeping a low profile because it knows if it raises its head, it will be attacked very severely by Israel. So Hezbollah has been very careful. In fact, Hezbollah has hedged its bets. It has not said that it would help Iran if Iran was hit by the United States, which is really interesting because I think Hezbollah has decided it's better to be to build up quietly rather than have some sort of performative series of minor missile strikes that would just result in it being more severely damaged by Israel than actually getting involved in this conflict, if indeed there is a conflict. But the other Iranian proxies have taken a slightly different position, Claire. The pro-Iranian militia in Iraq, one of those groups has said that it will join the fight against the US if indeed the US does attack Iran. And the Houthi rebels in Yemen have suggested, without saying openly, that they will renew their attacks on international shipping in the Red Sea if indeed the US does attack Iran. Now, look, we don't know whether these are just sort of bravado or boasts, but certainly on the part of the Houthis, they do tend to actually follow through on their threats. And so that is another factor which is interesting because the Houthis and the other pro-Iranian militia in Iraq did not join in during the 12-day war in June last year. So it's a really interesting situation to see exactly how the proxies, terror proxies of Iran will behave if indeed they are attacked.
If Donald Trump doesn't do anything now, if this is just a military exercise or a show of force and that carrier eventually goes somewhere else, what will that mean for Trump's flexing of muscle and power? Will it diminish his ability to make threats in the future?
Look, he's certainly He would be, I think, slightly embarrassed if nothing comes of such a massive military buildup. And that would come on top of him having to retreat on the question of Greenland, him having to retreat to some degree on the question of regime change in Venezuela, having successfully kidnapped Maduro, and upon his very unpopular comments about allied help in Afghanistan as well. So, look, Trump's had a very bad week, and I think that he would certainly be reluctant to look like a paper tiger on Iran after having spoken so strongly about it for so long. But, it is a massive decision, Claire, to actually launch a big strike on Iran at this point. It's one of the most important decisions facing him as president because it has ramifications that go well beyond these strikes. I mean, potentially it could. There's all sorts of instability that it could trigger throughout the region. Interestingly, America's Arab allies in the Middle East are not supportive of this. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have said, we don't want, we're not going to allow America to use our airspace. We're not going to be a part of this if it goes ahead. And the reason why is because they're not because they love Iran, they certainly don't, but they fear a very unstable Iran is worse than the status quo. And that's why America, in doing this, will be doing it without those Arab allies walking alongside it.
Well, that's the other question, isn't it, Cam? If he does go ahead and there is regime fall in Iran, we saw in Syria great celebrations at the fall of a despotic regime and then chaos. Regardless of what I think most right-thinking people would agree is the need for Iranians to be able to live their lives in peace without morality police beating them to death. Is it risky for the region for this regime in Iran to fall?
Look, I think while the West, including the US, Claire, would love this regime to fall, it's been nothing but repressive and horrific for the Iranian people. You're absolutely right. Vacuums are dangerous. Also, we saw ISIS rise through the vacuum in Iraq. History suggests that these are very perilous times when this happens. And it's been suggested that one of the reasons why the US has chosen until this time not to actually assassinate the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, is simply because it doesn't want to have this complete chaos and this sort of very vicious power battle that would happen if indeed he was assassinated. So it's a tricky balance for the US to strike, and it's a tricky balance for the Trump White House at a time when it's had a few setbacks.
Cameron Stewart is the Australian's chief international correspondent. Thanks, Cam.
Pleasure.